I can say is thank God for a mother's courage. Thank God for the mothers that stand strong no matter what family members, what type of health professionals, or what society says, because guess what? When you can become a mother, okay, that no longer conforms, that no longer can be put into what we call statistics. This is who I'm interviewing today. I'm interviewing a mother such as that. So the reason why I wanted to do this little blurb before we get into the interview is I'm just doing this now, like right now, here today. This morning, she sends me this, holy SH blank blank. And I go, wow. Okay, so her son has only been on our protocol for a couple of weeks. All right, now remember something. Watch what the picture I'm going to show you, and then listen to the interview and tell me that there are limitations. There are no limitations. Incurable is for those with limiting beliefs, and incurable is said only by those health professionals that don't have the answer. When you don't have the answer, just call it incurable. Well, I guess what? Let's just end that today. Let's also end judgment. Let's also end guilt. Okay? And let's bring on unconditional love for ourselves and remember who created us. And then there is no such word as incurable. Take a look at this picture. We're going to leave it up for just a few seconds. Take a good look at it and then watch what a courageous mother has to say. Welcome to Doc Talk, everyone. I've got two amazing, beautiful guests with me today. And we have Becca and we have Beckett, right? That's your name, isn't it? What? You got it. Okay, so the reason why we're here is we're here to listen to a Braveheart mama's story, okay? So what I'd like you to do is, why don't you start from the beginning. And what we're doing here today is we're talking about the story of never giving up, the story of not leaving anybody behind, the story of real, true love. Because you know what? Nothing's more powerful than the power of love. And nothing is more powerful to heal than the power of love. So let's talk about it. Why don't you start from the beginning and just tell us about this little tiger, okay?
Okay, so the beginning starts 2.5 years ago when Beckett was 8 months. We went up to the Yukon to spend a summer in the Yukon with my family, and it was a summer where my family could watch me and watch Beckett at the same time because I was having all these symptoms, and they were telling me that I had postpartum. And I kept telling them that it wasn't postpartum. I would get twitching all over my body and just all these unexplained symptoms on my right side of my body. And I kept telling the doctors this, and they would test me for things, and it would come back negative. And anyway, so that summer, Beckett was starting to hit his milestones. He was pulling himself up, just doing everything that a baby should. And then when we got back from the Yukon, when he was about 11 months old, he started dragging his feet across the floor. And so we knew something was wrong. And we took him in to see a neurologist in Edmonton, and they started testing him for different things. And one of the main things that they started testing him for was spinal muscular atrophy. Now, if anybody who's a mother knows those are words you don't want to hear, and it's a month-long test, so you are literally waiting to hear if your son has something potentially devastating for a month. And meanwhile, I'm having some crazy symptoms as well. And so it was really hard. It was just a really, really hard, devastating time. Our whole journey has been about love and faith. And there's been so many things that have happened to us along our journey that has changed everything for us. We waited with heavy hearts to hear if this test would come back negative for Beckett. We were waiting to hear if this test would come back, and we were hoping and praying that it wouldn't come back positive. Meanwhile, I just have to be really truthful about what happened to us. We were going through this really hard time, and we didn't have any answers, and I was dealing with it really, really hard.
How long did it take before you got answers? Like, were you waiting? How long were you waiting for
We
an
were
answer?
we were waiting a long time, because once we got the test back that Beckett actually didn't have spinal muscular atrophy, they started to do genetic testing. And then we met with this amazing doctor. We're blessed to have him at the Stollery, and he diagnosed Beckett with arthrogryposis. And that would have been something we would have taken, but they kept doing genetic testing. And so one day in October, we got a phone call from one of the neurologists, and she told me that Beckett had come back positive for a disorder called Yar's disease. Now, Yar's disease is very rare. They say that there's only about 10 people in the world that have this disorder, and it causes muscle weakness. He was showing weakness in his muscles, mainly in his feet and his hands. And the doctor told me on the phone, she said Beckett would never get better. He would never get any stronger. He would be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. I asked her if physio would help him. She said physio wouldn't help him. And that was it. And she hung up, and we hung up the phone.
So they were saying that he wouldn't be able to get around. He wouldn't be able to crawl on his own.
Nope.
Or do anything, right?
Nothing. They said he wouldn't get stronger, he would get weaker. Words like that, the power of those words, if you decide to take those words on, can devastate you.
Did you take them on?
I didn't take them on. In those times, you have to find something in yourself, and for me, it was faith. And the thing that changed our lives was actually a dream that I had. One night, I was just so devastated. I always cry at this moment. I'm so scared. Because this is my child, and you're going to tell me that my son will never walk, he'll never get better. And I went to bed that night, and I felt like I had lost all hope. And I called out to God, and I said, Lord, I need an answer here. I need something. Like, give me something. And that night, I didn't know what would happen in the morning. I didn't know what my decisions would be. But that night, I had the most amazing dream. And it's something that I could never explain to you. It was all this colors of golds and yellows and just beautiful. And it was in front of our farmhouse. And it was me and it was Beckett. And I was standing behind Beckett. And Beckett was in front of me. And he was walking. And it was like a video camera when they zoom in. The video zoomed in on Beckett's hands and showed Beckett's hands running along the flowers. And it was the most beautiful, peaceful feeling that I've ever felt in my life. And I can't explain to you what it was, but it was real to me. And I woke up that next morning, and there was only sunshine and me in the entire room. And I knew that it meant something. And so I started researching. And I spent night after night after night researching. And I started testing Beckett for everything, getting a hold of anyone that would listen to me, any tests that I could do on Beckett. And I came across this test, and I got Beckett to take the test, and Beckett, the results came back, and he tested positive for Lyme disease and a virus called Coxsackie virus, which is a co-infection from Lyme disease, which causes muscle weakness. Well, that doesn't matter. If that test comes back, who's going to believe me? And so my next step was to reach out to my naturopath doctor and see if I could get any answers from her. And so she tested me, and she was willing to test me, but she told me, she's like, Becca, like, we've tested Beckett for everything. Like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have Lyme disease. And I'm like, I don't care. Test him anyway. And she knew about this dream that I had. I told her about it. And anyway, we went there and she tested him and he came back positive and she almost fell off the chair. But that still doesn't matter because how am I going to tell my pediatrician at the stollery that my son has Lyme? The Lyme test in Canada is not a reliable test. It doesn't test where it needs to test, and lots of people will get false negatives or false negatives with the Lyme test. And so I knew that, so I wasn't willing to test my son with the Canadian test. And so I said, well, what's next, Leona? What can we do next? And she's like, well, we need to send his blood to Armin Labs in Germany. And so our next step was to send Beckett's blood to Germany and to see what the results would be. We were hoping that he'd be tested positive for Lyme disease. It takes about a week to get the results. I felt it in my whole being that this was the answer. Like, I just felt that this was where we were supposed to be going. And so anyway, could hardly sleep for a week, and we got the positive results back that Beckett was positive for Lyme disease, but most importantly that he tested positive for Coxsackie virus, A1B7, I believe, and which causes muscle weakness too. And so I went with that. I took that in and I brought that to the doctor so fast, and I showed it to him and I said, here, this is what my son has. This is the answer. And he looked at me and he said, this is not a real lab. This is not real. And I said, how can this not be real? This is a reputable lab in Germany, which hundreds of thousands of people use this lab. And when they start getting the treatment they need, they start getting better. And he said, no, this isn't real. And I said, your motto has always been, you listen to the mother, but you're not listening to me. And I walked out of that room, and I thought I would never walk back in that room again. And lo and behold, a month later, Beckett got bronchitis. And the thing about me is that my son comes first, and I knew that doctor would be the best one to take care of my son. And so, begrudgingly, I took my son back to this doctor, and I was waiting for him to come into the room. And I was waiting for that, that feeling of whatever, that, just, and he walked into the room and he looked at me and he came over and he gave me a hug. And he said to me, he's like, I can't deny that what is going on here, it could be a possibility. And so the best thing that I can do for you is to support you through this. And that was enough for me.
That was good, eh?
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
It was. It was enough because he was listening to me.
People don't not listen because they're mean or they don't care. They just can't process what they haven't been programmed to process.
Exactly.
Everybody's got a program. That would be just like we can't write off our family. We don't want to write off other people. We're not going to write off other practitioners, even if they don't believe in us. But it's all from where you come from. It's all where you studied from, right?
Yep, absolutely. And Lyme is not something that is, I would say, prevalent in Alberta. We haven't really heard of it. It's sort of this thing that people are just unaware of. And but it didn't matter to me what he thought or whatever. I had something and I was going to go with it, and I was going to make sure that I did everything I could possibly do for my son. And I have a huge faith in God, and I knew with these two things that great things were going to happen, because anytime anyone would tell me something about my son, I would just take what they said, but I wouldn't take what they said. I would.
And there it is right there. And there it is for you. And you need to understand that. Don't you ever let anybody tell you that they know. And you know what? Understand something. All right? Don't let this fool you either. I'm a professional. Understand something. You know better. You know your family better. You know your children better. You don't let anybody else rule, school, or fool you. And understand something. When somebody says something like this, how do you like this one? There's nothing we can do. We can't figure it out. It's a mystery. Well, mystery, you know what mystery stands for? Ignorance. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Just because somebody doesn't know how to help your son doesn't mean your son can't be helped. And you know what? We were created by God Almighty, and you know the word incurable. That's a made up word like everything else. And you know what? In life, what it's not it. You know what most people say? They'll say, "I'll believe it when I see it," and guess what? You gotta believe it, and then you'll see it. And if you don't believe in you, and you don't believe in your dream, and you don't believe, and that's the one thing that really gets me is a lot of people say they believe in God, but then where's their faith?
Yeah. And faith was all we had. Essentially, like, no one was listening to me. I felt like I was going against this world where I needed to accept that Beckett had Yar's disease, that he would never get any better. But I took the name that they gave me and I took two words from it, metabolic disorder, and I went with that. And I said, okay, he's got this Yar's disease, this Lyme, but he has something called a metabolic disorder. Well, that's a simple thing. You fix
Well,
his digestion.
Guess what, everyone? A burp is a metabolic disorder. A fart is a metabolic disorder. So understand something, okay? Metabolic disorder just means it's happening from your mouth to your rectum, and there's a dysfunction. And guess what that is? It's called leaky gut usually. But let's get back to your story. But I want to backtrack a little bit. But you didn't just have to deal with the professional side of things. I have never met anybody that would have a child or have a sickness that if the professionals said, there's nothing we can do for you, that the rest of the family still backs you. How was your family? Did they back you on this?
I got really blessed. I have a really supportive husband.
Great.
And he has been amazing. It's really hard for people to take things that are different. My mom, I have a lot of support, but I also don't have support and the fact that they're not familiar with going a different way, I guess, going against the grain.
And that's why you don't want to judge. You don't want to judge your family harshly. But guess what? Don't let your family be judge and jury for your decision making.
Nope.
No, that you will always regret that. And that's what this story is about here today. The story is about having courage and faith and believing in yourself and going forward. Okay, so let's talk about your son, and we'll keep going with your story.
Well, so then after that, after getting the diagnosis of Lyme disease, I was so just excited to have a different answer than yours. You fight anything to not have that diagnosis of only 10 people in the world. And so I took it and I went with it. And God placed the right people in my life. And I found out about laser therapy in Vancouver. And so that was our next thing that we did. As soon as I heard about it, I met with the doctor in Vancouver, Port Moody, and we started to do laser. And from August to September, Beckett became a different child. He went through HERCS, which is Lyme die-off, and he was very sick for lots of that month. But we also started to notice changes in Beckett. He started to crawl, and they said he would never crawl. He started to do all these new things, and we were so excited. We were so excited to see those little changes. When my son went down to Vancouver, his hands were like this, and he started to go like this, and then he started to grasp things. He was in such a state of this, he could only really use his thumbs, and we started to notice such a difference in his little hands, and there is nothing that could ever explain the gratitude of seeing strength coming into my son's body when there was so much weakness there before. He could hardly even lift himself up, and now he was starting to crawl, and it was absolutely amazing. And while we were doing the laser treatment, I was doing tons of research, learning about anti-inflammatory diet, learning about leaky gut, like taking people that stood out for me and taking their information and starting putting all these pieces together and taking what the doctors had told me. They told me Beckett had issues with his liver, but they couldn't tell me why. He wasn't maintaining his B's. They couldn't tell me why. So in my head, I knew that it was a digestive thing because yours is a metabolic disorder. And so I went with that. I started to do things to try and help rebuild his digestion along with the laser therapy. And we started to see results. And I just videotaped everything. So we have Beckett from the start and we have Beckett now. And we spent August to September in Vancouver, and then we went back to Vancouver for the month of November doing laser treatment. And then I got our doctor there to get Beckett tested for allergies, so he got an MRT. I wanted his allergies because I wanted to know anything that was going to cause inflammation in his body. I wanted to do whatever I could to stop that inflammation because I feel like inflammation is the root of all disease. And so if I could help with that portion of it, I was hoping to see some results from that, and I did. And we did. And we started to see more changes in Beckett. Beckett is now crawling upstairs.
And he was never supposed to crawl. So.
And he started to crawl upstairs. And I called my husband, and I'm like, Beckett is crawling upstairs. And my husband was just so thankful. I know that he questioned a lot of the journey that I was on, but he was always supportive. But now he's just like, just keep doing what you're doing, Becca. Like, you're doing this, Beckett's doing this. And we were seeing so many changes in Beckett. Beckett started wiggling his toes the other day. He had never done that. He's using most of his fingers now. You can see the difference in the strength in his fingers. There's just so many things exciting that are happening with Beckett. His crawling is more like a crawl speed. He's just like going everywhere, and you could just feel it from him. You can feel that healing is happening, and it's just so exciting.
And there it is. But it's amazing that you understood that inflammation is at the base of stopping him from getting well. And you know, most parents out there, they're taking their children to doctors. They're spending incredible amounts of money for different therapies. And guess what? And then they go home and they haven't got the inflammation under control, because the inflammation will burn up through your money. It'll burn up through any type of medicine you take your child through.
Everything that has happened on our journey has happened for a reason. People sometimes tell me they can't believe the things, because I've just documented everything, the people that we've met, the situations we've been in. When we went down to Vancouver, how can you afford to stay in Vancouver in the high season? I actually met a lady in Walmart and we started talking, and after talking for 10 minutes, she invited me to come stay at her house for free for 11 days. So for 11 days I had accommodations, free accommodations, where if we went to a hotel, it would have been $400 a month or $400 a night. After that, people found out we needed a place to stay. They got a hold of us and we got to go stay in a house for free with a vehicle to get to and from the clinic, because these people reached out to us. So for me, like, faith has been a huge thing for us every step of the way. We are here exactly where we need to be because of our faith. And to see Beckett just get better and better, it's not only inspiring me, but it's inspiring so many other people that you never give up. You never listen to what somebody says to you, and you never take that on you. Put that on you. You'll find something in yourself. That's what I did as Beckett's mom. Every time somebody would say something to me, I would remember my dream. I would remember Beckett walking. I would remember his hands going along the flowers, and I would follow that. And it's led me here, and Beckett's getting better. Never doubt what you're capable of, because if you believe, anything can happen.
Yeah, and it's all about dreaming, and I think we all stop dreaming, or when we do have a beautiful dream, we don't recognize that it's not a dream, because everything was a dream before you actually became real for you. You have to understand something. As I've said before, first you have an image, then you have a thought, and that thought creates an emotion. The emotion creates a frequency, and guess what? E equals MC squared. Otherwise, energy creates matter. So, you know what? This mother is making her son matter. So that's why we're here today, right? We're here today to talk about where he is, and we want everybody to know where he is, and then we're going to let everybody know where he's going, and we're going to show everybody where he's going to go, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just feel like we're just getting started, and Beckett is already crawling upstairs. So.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, when you harness nature and you go back to nature and you go back to the way things were naturally, don't get me wrong. There are breakthroughs in science. There are medical breakthroughs. But first we have to look at the foundation and the power of love and the power of nature. All these laws, they cannot be broken. If you break them, then you're just not going to make the headway that you're making, right? Mm-hmm. So we just wanted you to hear this story, and this is just part one, because we're going to come back in about a couple of months, and we're going to show you how he's doing. And the reason why we're doing this, this is to promote inside of you faith. This is to promote inside of you courage. This is to promote inside of you never give up and understand the meaning of family. You protect your family. And I'll tell you something. You protect your family from the systems out there that say that that's incurable, that there is no answer. Because guess what? Okay? The power of love is the answer. And if you stick with that, and like I said, remember the other day when I know that you're really, really wanting this to happen, but how happy is Beckett, how happy is he?
Oh, anybody that meets Beckett will tell you right away, he's just such a joy. Like he's just this kid that is just so happy, and he's got so much love to give, and he's not even aware of anything that he doesn't have right now. Like he doesn't let it get him down.
But here's the deal. He's counting on courageous parents to hold the faith so that he can live his dream someday.
Yep.
And that's why we're here. So thank you. And thank you, sweetie, for joining me. And thank you for joining us. And stay tuned, okay? Because remember something. If you dream it and you believe it and you see it and you don't let doubt, fear, and worry to come in, it will be yours. Don't ever let anybody ever dictate your life. This is your life. You were created to come down here and create, so create a masterpiece. Thank you for joining us.